Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 2. I was just sat down chatting to Neil and having a great time, thinking I'm really looking forward to the first speaker of the day, and they thought, oh no, I'm introducing the first speaker of the day. Brilliant to see so many of you. I hope you had a great day 1. Those of you that were here with us yesterday, hope you had a really good party. I think it is a testament to the professionalism of our sector that we can have a party and then the following morning we can have a breakfast about ethics at 8:30 in the morning. And a large number of people turn up and engage. So thank you very much to all of you. I just have a couple of short notices I'd like to make before we start today. Obviously, all the information you need is in your handbooks. All of us CILIP staff are wearing these blue badges, so if you need anything, do please stop any of us, and we'd be only too happy to help. The conference hashtag lit up. Yesterday, we were tweeting at number 3 in the UK, very briefly. Woo. Go us, mainly Carla, obviously, but thank you. So let's keep that going today. Also, just to thank again the sponsors who've supported this event. So the Information School at the University of Sheffield, I hope some of you had a chance to chat with them. The Information Standard with NHS England, and this is, of course, Health Information Week. So it's a fantastic opportunity to celebrate the role of knowledge and information in healthcare. Thank you so much to our colleagues at BDS, and thank you to Research Information for your support too. Just in case you don't know, there is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to attend a CILIP board meeting, that moment you've all been waiting for. So that takes place at lunchtime today. Please do sign up at the registration desk downstairs. And I really do encourage you to get involved because we want to be transparent and open in the way we work. So really hope you'll come along for that. Also, if you've been collecting sticker sheets, you still have your chance to win an iPad. So please don't forget to hand those in and vote for the best stands. So it's a real pleasure to introduce our opening keynote this morning. He's somebody that we've really enjoyed working with, who's facilitated a new spirit of partnership between CILIP and the Society of Chief Librarians, and indeed the wider public library community. Neil MacInnes is strategic lead for libraries, galleries and culture at Manchester City Council. And I think we've all been blown away by what he and his team have been able to achieve in this fantastic city with that beautiful library and the service across Manchester. He wouldn't like me saying this, but he has over 30 years' experience in public libraries. It says to say it in my script. He's led the recent £48 million transformation of Manchester Central, and I hope as many of you as possible have had a chance to discover that beautiful library. So please do join me in giving a huge and warm welcome to our keynote this morning, Neil MacInnes. Neil.
Thank you very much, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Being here today means I've completed my tour of duty of CILIP, because I've spoken at CILIP Scotland, I've spoken at CILIP Northern Ireland and Irish Library Association, and last year at CILIP Cymru in Swansea, so my work here is done, thank you. But it's fabulous having a home gig. You know, one of the fortunate things I have in my role as President of Society of Chief Librarians is I tour quite a lot, so it's really good to be speaking in Manchester. It's slightly daunting though, because I have a number of my team here in the audience, and they actually know the truth. So I will ensure today that there is no fake news in this presentation, and that I will ensure that facts matter throughout. That's my guarantee. This week I also had the pleasure of speaking at the launch of the latest Reading Well scheme, which is produced in partnership with Society of Chief Librarians, the Reading Agency, Arts Council England and the Wellcome Trust, and a range of other key partner agencies. But the reason I mention it is that it focused me on the fact that whilst information has never been more freely available because of the internet, there's really never been a greater need for the provision of correct and factual information to ensure that people have free access to the right level of information at the right time in their lives. And that's what public libraries do, have always done, and do best. And I think it's useful to reflect on that. Public libraries are uniquely placed to provide targeted and universal information, and the core offer around the diffusion of knowledge and places of learning aspiration, inspiration, refuge, and wonder, as well as a place to foster a sense of community, has not changed and has never changed. And in fact, in some ways, their need and relevance has never been greater needed. I recently saw someone describe them as the internet, but with people, and I quite like that thinking. Please indulge me this morning, though, because this presentation will focus on Manchester's journey, and then I'll touch on some of the work of the Society of Chief Librarians and the work we're doing with CILIP. Despite the doom and gloom that we read about in relation to public library services and reduced funding as a result of austerity, there is a lot of really good and exciting activity taking place in public libraries throughout the UK. For me, it's about re-envisioning public libraries and what they're about, and about focusing on people and places, and the library offer and the library programme being developed with people. None of this would be possible without the great partnerships and innovative programmes which you will hear about this morning. But most importantly, none of this is possible without the dedicated and trained workforce, that's staff and volunteers, on the ground, taking these programmes from vision to venture. In my own library service and within SCL, we will continue to develop new services, and the library offer will continue to evolve. And there's a quote which I think I really like, sums up the ever-changing landscape around public libraries, and it's that the library was never finished. It was never meant to be finished. And I don't think there's any other public service that actually can bend and adapt more flexibly than public libraries. But before I delve into my presentation, I do want to take the opportunity to applaud the library workforce, and that's my own team in Manchester and across the whole country, because without them, none of what we actually aspire to do would be possible. So, Manchester Libraries, our Renewal programme. I just want to tell you a little bit. This is my local studies fetish coming out. So Manchester is very much a library city. We have some of the finest libraries in the UK. John Rylands Library, which is part of the University of Manchester on Deansgate, a phenomenal building. The Special Collections at Manchester Metropolitan University. The Portico Library, which is a subscription library. Chetham's, which is the oldest public library of the English-speaking world. And, of course, the truly amazing Manchester Central Library. A little bit about the history, though. Manchester Public Libraries is the first local authority public library and reference library under the 1850 Public Libraries Act. If I have any colleagues from Salford or Warrington here, I'll speak to you outside, because I know we sometimes dispute that. Edward Edwards was the first chief librarian who joined Manchester from the British Museum. He lasted 8 years. He left in 1858 after a fallout with the Libraries Committee. Lessons learned. This is my 8th year, so I'm watching what I do. Introduced the first classified catalogue system in 1855, and we've had 14 chief librarians to date. Andrea, who was the chief librarian in 1864 to 1878, was credited for first using keywords in cataloguing. And as I mentioned, Chetham's, 1653, the oldest public library in the English-speaking world. And one thing I also want to bring to mind through this presentation is that quite often we focused on existing library buildings. And in Manchester, libraries have evolved over the years and changed and moved locations and where they actually are, dependent on need. And I think that's really important to recognise that. So the commercial library, which opened in 1919, originally was in the Royal Exchange building because that was the best place for it to be at that period in time. So change has always been part of the library's ecology. So a really rich history as a public library and as a library city. And what I'm really pleased to say that in the 21st century and in 2017, that hasn't changed. Manchester is still very much a library city. So there's a recent article, 10 reasons why Manchester is the UK's new cultural hotspot. And in at number 4, it's the home to some of the best libraries. And I think that for that being captured in this current day and age, I think is a tremendous accolade to the city. So a little bit of the context of the library service which I run. Central Library, and thank you so much for putting it on the logo. I'm tweeting that to my bosses as we speak. We have 15 neighbourhood libraries. We have 6 community partnership libraries. We're also responsible for Strangeways, the prison library. We manage the County Record Office on behalf of the Combined Authority. We have the 24-hour virtual library, and also we do a lot of work with Greater Manchester Libraries, which I will pick up as part of this presentation. And that's just a range of our buildings throughout the city. We opened our newest library last year, which is Arcadia, which is Library and Leisure Centre, a brand new £8 million library on Stockport Road, which is the A6, one of the main thoroughfares into the city. And this library has proved to be extremely popular. It's our third co-located library and leisure centre, which enables us to promote active minds as well as active bodies. And we are continuing to evolve as we speak. We will have another new library and leisure centre opening within the next 2 years. But I'll take you back in time, almost 10 years. We saw the need to develop a clear strategy for the library service, and this is pre-austerity. When I joined the library service in 2005, because you may have noticed already I'm not a natural Mancunian, when I relocated from Glasgow and I attended my interview in the Central Library, the director asked me, what did I think of Manchester Central Library? It's one of those moments where you think, right, what do we say here? I said what I'd seen and was offered the job at the interview, which I think speaks volumes. But the library estate, while we had a really good range of programmes and activities, the library estate was in a very poor state. Some of our branch libraries were not fit for purpose. Central Library was tired, needed some TLC. Our libraries were in the wrong location. The population had moved, but the library had stayed, and they really were no longer fit for purpose. So in 2008, we decided to look at the strategy for the library service across the whole city, focusing on people. Where are our customers? Who are our customers? What do they actually need? What can they bring to the party? Focusing on place. Where are libraries in the right locations? And pride, a real pride in what we were doing and a pride in the city. So we started to review every branch library and looked at the existing locations. We wanted all of our libraries to be in the heart of the district centre, ideally on a corner plot. We wanted them to be within good transport links. We wanted to identify potential partners and funding, because the key point of this strategy came with no money at the beginning. And we wanted to develop a plan around having no more standalone libraries in the city, looking at where best we should be located. We had some clear design principles. We wanted all of our libraries to have glazed frontage. I wanted people to see people engaging in activity so that they could actually then think, you know what, that's a place for me. We wanted them to be flexible spaces, and we wanted to adopt a retail approach to the layout. And we sought a major investment in new technology. We wanted to introduce RFID, customer self-service and Wi-Fi. I once spoke at a library staff conference where I said I was going to change the world and release staff from the day-to-day drudgery. And at the end of the staff conference, a group of staff came back to me and said, we like the day-to-day drudgery. But anyway, moving on. But we wanted to really focus on the customer offer. For me, everything we do in libraries is about people. It's about the outcomes, it's about the results. So a real focus on learning, reading, health, information, digital and cultural. Strangely enough, that mirrors the SCL universal offers. But the other thing that was really, really paramount was to ensure that we had good political and community support, so that we were taking our community on the journey with us. We're not designing libraries for the people, they're libraries of the people. And the political support element is critical. While I have a manager who is responsible for my pay and rations, I report to an executive member who holds the culture and leisure portfolio, and that's the person I have to ensure him and I are on the same page. So to date, and as I say, we started this off with absolutely no money, but we have managed since 2008 to see 80% of the library estate in Manchester either refurbished, modernised or rebuilt. And that's roughly about £75 million worth of investment in the library service, capital investment I should say. We've co-located with other partners and other service providers, and we've looked at how we can really improve our customer offer. I've mentioned we have 3 libraries that are co-located with leisure centres. That allows us to open 90 hours per week over 7 days, which is phenomenal. We have 2 of our libraries that are now co-located with adult education centres, which allows us to signpost learners on that journey. And one library, the first library that we modernised, is with the Manchester College up in the north of the city, where we closed 2 very small failing libraries and were able to open a new super library on Rochdale Road. We also have some libraries that have been built in partnership with commercial partners, two libraries that are co-located with schools and academies, and a number of community partnership libraries with social housing providers. We decided to adopt that we wouldn't have a one-size-fits-all, and in fact we turned some people down because the offer wasn't right for what we wanted, which is a really good bargaining position to get yourself into. We now only have 5 standalone libraries in the city. Our oldest library, Chorlton, 1914, which is a Carnegie library. Interesting fact, the plans for Chorlton Library went down in the Titanic. Carnegie had to write to the Chief Librarian saying, where are your plans? And we've got plans for these new libraries as well. And this year we've just signed up for a 3-year budget strategy for a Library 2020 programme, which will see a further £2 million investment in technology to allow us to continue to develop our services. But it's not just about buildings. Buildings are important, and I say one of the things that I was really keen to do when I came to Manchester was to ensure that actually using the library was a quality experience. But we then wanted to focus on those people who weren't using the libraries and trying to figure out why they're not using the libraries. So we undertook a major communications review, looking at a brand for the library service, or in this case is 2 brands, but I'll come on to that. Looking at our signage, we'd really tired and dated signage. We were still branded under being the Libraries and Theatres department. Theatres plural, we only had 1 by that time. We looked at customer segmentation and targeting, so who was using libraries, but more importantly, who was not using libraries, why were they not using libraries, and actually could we start to target some of those audiences. Looking at how we promote, how we programme and our comms channels, and looking at a review of our online presence and our customer journey. In public libraries, we have the joy of having our website embedded deep into a council website, which is not necessarily the most, I need to watch what I'm saying here, but it's not always the most positive customer journey. So looking at how we could improve that, but also working with customers to see what they want. I had a really interesting experience with the Youth Council once when we were talking about library apps, and I proudly said to the Youth Council, we've got a library app. And the Youth Council member said, yes, but it's crap. And because all we had done was lifted the transactional basis of the library management system and put it into a library app. There was no social experience, there was no customer experience, it was purely transactional. And actually that feedback from customers is key to allow us help to plan the library service of the future. And I say we wanted to review the experience, review feedback, and review the data. So we had previously no brand guidelines whatsoever. I say a combination of old Manchester City Council branding or handmade branding, which in some cases staff think they're doing a really a wonderful thing, but sometimes it's not necessarily the right message. So we agreed an approved brand with guidance for library staff, looking at how it could be used, so that we had a consistent tone of voice across the city. They also sent out positive messages. One of my pet hates is going into a library with 1,000 notices telling you what you can't do. Why don't we have one big notice saying this is what actually you can do in our spaces? And we wanted a consistency across all of our libraries, that consistent brand. And we created 2 strap lines. One for Central Library, which we describe Central Library as your world in one place, which I just absolutely love. And then Manchester Libraries, where possibilities are endless. We carried out a signage audit that was outdated and not fit for purpose, lack of clarity, as I've mentioned, negative messages, here's what you can't do in the library, and actually looked at how we could improve the customer self-service experience for customers as well through signage. We started to look at customer segmentation and targeting, so that's analysing the customer base and non-customers in wards. I've spent most of my career talking to councillors who tell me I don't have a library in my ward. No, but you have 4,000 library members in your ward, and I think it's really important that you start to look at it not on a building base, but on an authority base. We started to plot heat maps so we could understand where the need was, so where we had a lack of, say, 0 to 5 sessions, start to target those areas that actually required those types of sessions, and started to look at trigger points of when people are actually engaging with the library service through when they're requiring study requirements, when people have children and they need to engage with the library, or people who find themselves facing unemployment, and again, using the library. And we started to make use of the LMS, There's not really much we don't count in libraries. There's not really much that we count that we use in libraries. So how can we actually start to use that really rich quality of data to help us inform the business planning and service delivery? Greater Manchester Libraries Partnership, I'll just touch on this briefly because we don't work in an isolated bubble. Those boundaries that we operate within as local authorities mean very little to those other than those of us that work in those local authorities. So we started to look at how we could actually deliver better services for our residents across Greater Manchester. And that fits in nicely with the fact that we now have a combined authority, and we now have a Mayor of Manchester, Greater Manchester, who we're having a conversation with. But we have a huge library service across the 10 boroughs, 144 locations, over 18 million visits per year, some really big numbers. And what we wanted to do was share with those policy makers and decision makers the quality and the strength of the connection across those library services. We have now got a signed partnership agreement for libraries and archives across the 10. We have joint procurement, we have joint collections, we have joint services, so our business library covers the whole of the Greater Manchester area. We have joint posts, we look at reader promotions and stock management collectively, shared digital presences. We have one library card across the conurbation and one library catalogue, which allows access to 2.8 million books. And we've recently just secured £250,000 from the Libraries Innovation Fund for a Big Ideas, which is our start-up programme across the 10. What I'd like to concentrate now on is the Central Library, and it was really good to see so many of you last night at Central Library. None of it was staged, those were all real people playing the piano in the cafe, so on and so forth. But I say, when I took over the service in 2005, Central Library, whilst it was a fantastic building, it really was badly in need of some TLC and some work about what the customer offer was for Central Library, but more importantly, who it was actually serving. Because the students used the library, the academics used the library, researchers used the library, but Mancunians probably didn't use the library. And what we really wanted to do was open up the library for all. So we undertook a major refurbishment, which commenced in 2010. It's £48 million investment in the library. Not just the library, but the reconfiguration and the transformation of the whole square. And if you've been up to the library, I'm sure you'll agree, it is in an absolutely fantastic location, the transport hub of the city centre. St Peter's Square tram stop, there's one tram every 48 seconds. Cross that square at your peril. But as I say, the library service has always evolved and always changed. The first public library in Manchester was actually near to the Museum of Science and Industry, where we were last night. Then relocated to the former town hall in 1877 in King Street. Then up to some very attractive porter cabins in Piccadilly Gardens in 1912. And then to the fantastic Central Library, which opened for the first time in 1934. So it was a long transformation journey. We had an initial feasibility for the library in 2005. In 2006, we had a heritage audit of the library, which was around the special collections and the treasures of the library, which didn't make very good reading because the condition in which our special collections and our treasures and our archives were being kept in were not industry standard. We then had a fire in 2007. I have an alibi, okay? A very small fire, but what it led to was understanding that the stack in the library, which was the main body of the library, stainless steel, was actually structural and holding the building up. And had the fire taken place in the heart of the library, that steel would have collapsed within 7 minutes and the dome would have come down. And, everything happens for a reason. When you know that type of information, doing nothing is no longer an option. So we looked at a range of options. Did we want a brand new shiny box in the city? Carried out a range of feasibility options. There's not an awful lot you can do with a round purpose-built public library, I have to say. But we all came to the conclusion that actually transforming Central Library was the right thing to do. Funding was awarded in 2008. 2010 we closed and moved to temporary accommodation on Deansgate. And then in 2014 we saw the rebirth of the library. And since we reopened, 4.1 million people have visited Central Library. It is now the second busiest public library in the whole of the UK. And in 2017, as part of our ongoing involvement, we will become the civic and ceremonial host for the city. When the town hall closes down, the Lord Mayor will be relocated into the Central Library, and Central Library will become the venue for any civic responsibility or civic response in the city, which I'm really delighted about. So, why did we do it? We wanted to create an original modern library, and if you've been to Central Library, I hope that's what we've done. We've tastefully restored the heritage spaces in the library and created fantastic new areas. Previously, 70% of the library was behind the scenes. Only 30% of that was open to the public, and as a result of the transformation, we've reversed that. We wanted to create a place for people, a place for connections, a place for people to explore and to discover. We wanted to look at new services and new audiences, a real commitment to special collections. Prior to our closure in 2010, we've got a fantastic second folio, Shakespeare second folio. Between 1934 and 2010, it had been seen by 6 people. Since we reopened, we now take that folio out to branch libraries once a month in a taxi with a security guard, not an issue. And we bring in classes. And since we reopened, that volume alone has been seen by 1,500 people. So it's about making those collections and those treasures accessible. We now have an integrated archive centre of excellence, which I'll come on to, but we wanted to create the library as the third space, the city's living room, the city's study, but also the city's treasure trove, and the library as a key cultural destination. So the city's living room, the city's third space, is not the place that you work, it's not the place that you live, it's that other place in your life. And actually, when I wander around Central Library most days, not all day, I have to add, but when you just see how people enjoy the space and own the space, it's their space. It is truly a library of the people. We want to improve access to the space and the collections. We want a brighter, a more exciting space and a cultural destination. And I say through the transformation, I think we've respected what we had and restored the heritage architecture. But importantly, and again about people, we want to engage with communities from all ages and all backgrounds. The customer offer is now quite clearly articulated. We have an information business service that goes back to the old commercial library from 1919, but a modern iteration of that, and work in partnership, as a number of public libraries do, with the British Library. Henry Watson Music Library, one of the finest public music collections in a public library, donated to the library in 1912. That now has a tremendous space on the first floor of the library, but it's also a live music library. We have three digital pianos there, we have a drum kit, we have 5 guitars, we have sessions where young people just come in, we allow them to play music in the music library. Ooh. But it is just truly fantastic. And if people don't want that, well, there's quiet spaces you can go to, because it's your world in one place. There's something for everyone throughout that building. We've transformed our service through the use of IT, and we now have a new media lounge with a suite of 18 Apple Macs. We have conference facilities. We work closely with Manchester Central, who are the key conference provider in the city, and we've developed a performance and cultural programme in conjunction with the Arts Council. As part of our customer offer, we've really looked at the landscape of the city. So I think Manchester is the only place outside London where every language that's captured in the census is actually spoken. So how do our collections reflect that diverse community? We work closely with our communities of interest, so for example the LGBT community. Our health information is a key aspect of the library offer. The Children's Library, Manchester Central Library Children's Library, if you've ever been in our Children's Library before, it's about the size of that podium. We now have a fantastic digital children's library, which is actually a children's experience. We've called it the Secret Garden. The author of The Secret Garden lived in Manchester for a nanosecond. That's enough for me. We have a fantastic youth offer. We have a gaming zone where young people now literally run from the nearest high school at 3:30 each day to get onto the gaming zone. Those young kids would never have come into the Central Library previously. It's their space. We have a large city centre lending library. City centre population is rapidly expanding, as is the population of the city itself. And we've made the case to say, actually, we have to have a substantial library presence for those citizens as well. We have an open access reference floor and 170 PCs throughout the building. But our audiences, what I was really keen to do as we move forward was look at who our audiences were. So the archive search room, those people that we want to use the archive search room, we could put it on the top of a mountain, they would have found it, the academics and the researchers would have come, and the students would have come. But how do we target those new audiences into the library? So a real focus for the library staff was on how we engage with schools, particularly around Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4. Young people and families, so we have a clear and articulated family offer in the library. Our BME communities, how do we make sure that those communities feel that the library is relevant for them? So we actually have now got the race relations collection from the University of Manchester, located in the lending library in Central Library. Looking at our place-based communities, because what we had to be really clear about was that the Central Library was for the whole of the city and around. It wasn't just about those people that are visiting the city centre. Again, I mentioned our communities of interest, how we encourage heritage tourists into the library, and we are actually one of the top 10 hits on TripAdvisor for Manchester. So if you could please, thank you. And I say we're now annually attracting 1.5 million visits per year. So we can demonstrate back to our council the return on investment for what they've given for the library. We've taken out bedroom adverts. This sounds slightly dodgy, but effectively, there's an advert in hotel rooms that say, if you're coming to Manchester, please go to Central Library, which we thought was really important because it's a fantastic venue. We have a real cultural ambition, so a number of collaborative projects. We have themed activity, seasonal programme events, quality cafe with performance space. So we've got the external civic space where we start to have some activity there as well. And we're now looking at how we can be recorded as a visitor attraction, because it really hacks me off every year when the local newspaper reports that the most visited place in Manchester is X, when actually it's not. It's Manchester Central Library, but because we're not regarded as a visitor attraction, it doesn't count. That will be changing. We have a collaborative partnership. What we've done is embed the life of the library on absolutely everything that is happening in the city. So the Jazz Festival, the Manchester International Festival, which is on just now, Literature Festival, so on and so forth. When there's an event, activity or a festival taking place in the city, the library's part of that, and we've become a key cultural destination. But also, not just in the city centre, how do we replicate some of that in our branch libraries as well? So it's a hub and spoke approach. Working with a whole range of different partners. So this weekend is Sparkle Transgender Weekend, which is the largest transgender festival in the city. Manchester Central Library's in there. We're part of that. But I say it's really important that we embed ourselves in the life of the city. We've just submitted a bid to be a UNESCO City of Literature, which has been endorsed by UNESCO UK. And as part of that, what we're looking to do is create a libraries festival where the entire city and all the key libraries can celebrate the joy of libraries. And this is just a range of some of the things we've had. Joey the Warhorse, loved it. Everything, who were our Arts Council commission. I'd never heard who Everything were before we did this, but anyway. Guy Garvey, my mate, Guy Garvey, I have to say, from Elbow, who is a tremendous fan of library, and he's broadcast live from the library. And this young man is Joe Sugg, again, who I'd never heard of, but Joe is one of the most popular video bloggers on YouTube, who has an epic audience. Joe's been at the library twice and done some activity there for us as well. So again, really looking at the range of people to engage with to bring in those new audiences. A core author programme where we work with Waterstones and with W.H. Smith. And I think the key to all of our cultural activity is the library, we don't have to do it, we just have to provide the space. And it's about letting go and allowing other organisations, other people come in and use your activity. And I mentioned the fantastic website that we have within the City Council. So this is our plan. We've now got a website outside the City Council, which is funded by the Arts Council. This is the Library Live website, which promotes our cultural activity. Archives Plus partnership. We brought together a range of different partners to create a one-stop shop for local studies and archives. The city doesn't have a Museum of Manchester. There's nowhere that tells the social history of the city. The city is the museum. It's a dispersed museum. And what we use Central Library and the Archives for is an organisation to signpost to other areas. So an example is we have a fantastic Jewish collection in the library. We won't tell you everything about the history of the Jewish community. We'll give you a little nugget and then send you to the Jewish Museum. So it's how we work in partnership with those other key cultural destinations in the city. And that's just the range of our partners: County Record Office, City Archives and Local Studies. I mentioned the Race Relations, which is the Amadikwa Alula Trust from the University of Manchester. We have the North West Film Archive from Manchester Metropolitan University and a BFI Media Tech. We've also created a Central Library Development Trust, nothing to do with the governance of the library. This is purely a vehicle to bring in additional funding. And since we launched it in 2012, we've managed to bring in almost £1 million, which I think is quite phenomenal. That money sits outside the City Council. The Treasurer has no access to it. It's used to aid the programme of activity, particularly around learning, education, children activities. One of the things that we do through that is we open on a number of Sundays per year. That is funded by the Trust. That has a focus on families and activities. That attracts 5,000 people on a Sunday. So we're looking at how we bring in different money in a different way. And that's just some of the people that have donated to the Trust over the years. We've launched a Manchester Central Library Lover Card, where people want to pay a little something extra and then get behind-the-scenes tours, access to the various aspects. And we've also just launched weddings in Manchester Central Library. So there you go. That's the bride and the bridesmaids in the reading room. I just want to touch briefly on Society of Chief Librarians. So it's a network of heads of libraries from across England, Wales and Northern Ireland. I'm currently president of the Society of Chief Librarians, a post which I will hold until June of next year. We found out last week that we had been accepted onto the Arts Council National Portfolio, which is tremendous. So that means that we will now, if we are successful in our next stage of the application, receive £2 million over 4 years that will enable us to support and become firm advocates for public libraries across England. So I'm really excited about that. It's a major achievement. Also, for the first time though, 6 library services also received national portfolio status as well, which is a significant move for the Arts Council in recognising the contribution that libraries make to the sector. And I'm just going to finish off on the Public Library Skills Strategy, which was launched yesterday. And just to say, I'm not going to say very much because I'm conscious of time, and I want to show a quick video that it's been a real pleasure for us to work closely with CILIP over the past 12 months. And my congratulations to Alison Wheeler from Suffolk Libraries, who's with us here, and Mandy Powell from CILIP, who have been the captains of the ship pulling it together. So the information is on the CILIP website, but I'm really delighted from the Society of Chief Librarians to be part of that and look forward to that continued journey of partnership working with the Society, with CILIP. And what I'll just finish on is just a little video clip, because I say, for me, everything we do is about people, and I just want to show you some Mancunians enjoying their library. It's only 1 minute, so bear with me. And that, for me, that's why I've been doing what I do for over 30 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Neil. And one of the things I powerfully believe we need to do is tell a brilliant, bright story about the future of our libraries. And I think examples like Manchester really enables us to do that. So Neil's got a couple of minutes now just to take any questions or comments and anything you want to share from the floor. As ever, we've got roving mics. Please do say who you are and where you're from. Yes, we've got a question up at the back here. Thank you.
Hello, is this thing on? Yes. Hello, I'm Ruth. I work for OCLC, which is a library software company. But my question comes as a lifelong library user and library lover, and I am just so blown away by what you've done here in Manchester. Unbelievable. So I live in Sheffield, which is, as you know, on the other side of the Pennines. We're kind of telling a different story about libraries in Sheffield at the moment. It's all a very sad, negative story of closures and cuts. And, you know, when I say I work in libraries, people pull a sad face, basically. And what I want to know is, can you, Neil, as current president of the Society of Chief Librarians, feed back down to the library authorities across the country what you've done here and how they can engage with people and how they can put young people at the top of what they're doing and how they can put communities at the heart of what they're doing. And as you just said, tell a really positive story about our libraries. Is that something you want to do? Is that something you're going to do?
I think one of the reasons I'm here today and why I tell the Manchester story, and if you've been at other CILIP conferences or other conferences, this presentation is not new. You know, what I'm really keen to do is share what we've done in Manchester and show what the art of the possible can be. And there's a different landscape across the whole of the UK, but I think we have to showcase what's worked really, really well and what is achievable. So, you know, certainly, I think as part of SCL, we're keen to showcase some of the good news stories. What works in one area will not necessarily work in others. And like I said in my presentation, what works in certain parts of Manchester doesn't work in other parts of Manchester. But I think we have to celebrate what works well, and certainly something I'm more than happy to do.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Any other questions? Anything anybody wants to share with us? I think we have, yes, Sandra.
Hi, just one. And please ignore my grey hair when I ask it. But I was looking, or I didn't get, but I got some marvellous things. We have a growing elderly population. I would imagine that access to library services can make a big difference when you get into your 80s and 90s. And obviously there's a whole issue of residential care and those things. Have you got anything in your future strategy to look at that sector of that segment of the population?
The grey hair is very fashionable, I have to say. But what I would say is that that's a snapshot of what we do. And I could do a 4-hour presentation on how we engage with the entire community. We have a programme called A Grand Day Out in Manchester, and that's where we work with groups of older residents. And it's not just in the library, it's in the leisure centre, it's in the art gallery, so on and so forth. So we create a cultural programme of activity and engagement that allows people to have a social space that they work in. We have a housebound service where we have 700 residents who we deliver books to, and that's a social service as well, not just a library service. So we have an age-friendly policy and an age-friendly strategy for the city. So as I say, that's a snapshot of the communities that we serve. There is not one community in Manchester that we are not engaging with at some point in time.
Fantastic. Okay, I think we're going to have to draw the session to a close there. So please go on to have some refreshments, speak to our exhibitors, and then move on to the rest of the programme. But join me in just saying a huge thank you to Neil for your presentation. Thank you, Neil.